Welcome into the Barbecue Life podcast powered by Hound Hogs Barbecue Supply at Hound Hogs BBQ Supply on Facebook and Instagram. HoundHogsBBQSupply.com is where you can find rubs, sauces, and all kinds of great stuff. So let's get right down into it. So I want to welcome in Mr. Scott Parr. He is the pitmaster of Cool Hand Q based out of Dacula, Georgia. He's also the president of the GBC, which is the Georgia BBQ Championship. Scott, thanks for taking the time to join us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me on, Kurt.
So Scott serves a number of different roles. He's a competitor, like so many of us, so many of our listeners and myself, but he's also the president of the GBC, which is the Georgia BBQ Championship. And I thought, we would start by camping out on that because I really want to make sure that our listeners, wherever they are, understand what the GBC is and what the GBC does and how it helps promote barbecue. So I will turn that over to you, Scott, and let you, educate our listeners on all things GBC.
Yeah, well, the Georgia BBQ Championship, it's a points race, and what we do is we have I'd say kind of a competition. It's a friendly competition with the KCBS events here in Georgia. We're not necessarily the sanctioning event, but we do work with the organizers. We sanction them for the GBC. And what this allows is, there's so many competitions for KCBS that it is extremely difficult for a cook to get out there and compete in a points race. With this, the GBC allows them to compete against one another in the Georgia competitions, build up points, win some trophies, prizes, get some bragging rights. Plus, the GBC does a lot for the community. We do a lot for barbecue. We do a lot for giving back to the community through some charities. One is Serve, one is the Live Safe Resources. But we like to do that. It's something that I didn't know existed until I got into barbecue. And after finding out about it, I'm thinking, this is pretty cool. This is a way we can get out here and compete together. And with the pro side of it, all you have to do is compete really in 5 competitions. Because what we do is, no matter if you compete in 10, 12, we're going to take your 5 best scores. So your 5 best overall finishes, your 5 best category finishes, and we accumulate those up. So, you have, really a fair chance at it, whether you cook 6, 7 cooks or whether you cook 12.
That's right. I love that part of it. And you hit the nail right on the head. There are hundreds, maybe even thousands of KCBS contests across the world every single year. And yeah, it's virtually impossible, even in the States, just to get to, all of them. And so I think it's great for cooks that have, careers or have young families or maybe both. They don't want to drive all the way out to the West Coast or Texas. They can stay in Georgia and still get some friendly competition, as you said. And for our listeners, make sure you take some time, check out what the Georgia BBQ Championship is up to. So you can find them on Facebook and Instagram at Georgia BBQ Championship. You can also find them online where you can apply for a membership, which is very, very reasonable. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, $50 a year. Is that correct?
$50 a year for pro, $35 for backyard. And you can still register. You can register anytime. But what we do, we have the cutoff date as March 31st, but you get to accumulate your points if you competed in Sip and Swine, or if you're going to compete in Swamp Fest. So you'll get all those points if you compete in them, as long as you register by March 31st. After that, your membership is good, but you're going to start accumulating points from the contest moving forward.
That's right. And again, that's GeorgiaBBQChampionship.org, where you can find the application. You can find all the great things the GBC is doing for the community, getting involved with charities, et cetera. So, all right, so let's shift off the GBC just for a second. Let's talk about some barbecue. Let's talk about some competition barbecue. So how did all this start for you, Scott? What got you into this crazy world, hobby, whatever you want to call it, of competition barbecue? How's this journey all start for you?
Oh God, I don't know where it started from. I always loved cooking barbecue, around the house. We did it on anything we could, whether it was just a Weber grill or we'd move up to some of the other type smokers, but been cooking for a long time. Of course, got to watching a little bit of barbecue competition on TV and think, that'd be pretty cool to go check that out. So we went and checked out a few contests. And when I say we, it's my wife and I, Deneen. And, we kind of, we looked at it and thought, well, this might be something we might enjoy doing. We took a class and kind of got a little bit of the scoop on it and started out in backyard. So the first contest we ever participated in was Sipping Swine in Lawrenceville, which just blew me away because the amount of teams there, and we're backyard. So we get called on the stage for chicken. So we're up there. Next thing you know, we're down to the top 5, and I'm thinking, oh my God, here we're at top 5. And then we were down to top 3, and we wound up winning chicken. So just blew our mind. Didn't have a clue what we done right. I mean, that was the crazy thing. Got our award, threw the envelope on the table. Didn't look at the envelope. Didn't realize there was $500 in it. So I was like, I need to put that in my pocket. So, but yeah, we got a call there in backyard and got I think another call in pork there. We finished 3rd overall. Then went to Calhoun, which is a barbecue boogie and blues, and wind up winning grand there. So that was it. I mean, once that happened, then. But I will say this: what was cool is the other backyard cooks, which was Wayland, it was Tallulah Falls, Swine Medami, all those guys. It was a fun competition, amongst the backyards, and man, we were going to every one, and that's what the GBC did. I mean, we enjoyed the competition, but it really drove us to go and do more. And then during that year, I went down to Lyons, Georgia. Now, Lyons doesn't have a backyard cook, but KCBS allows you to have, you can cook some pro events, even though your backyard, you're allowed to cook pro. So we go down to Lyons, Georgia, and we're going to cook in that one. I don't know if you cooked at that one, but for the real
we cooked last year.
That's right. And so first cook down there in pro, we wind up winning pork. So got first place pork, and then wind up getting 7th place in brisket and 8th place overall. So, which just blew us away. Just like I said, we didn't know what we did right.
Right.
In barbecue, you definitely know what you did wrong for the most part. But a lot of times it's like, man, what did I do right? How do we do that again? So we decided the next year we're going to go ahead and move up and then go into the pro side of it. And then, after a year or two, COVID hit and really messed things up, but it's coming back. That was one thing. COVID hurt the GBC in a way that, the sponsors, as long as the organizers and everybody else, we were kind of put on hold for a little bit, but it's coming back very strong, very strong. So.
That's great to hear. I love to see that, here in Georgia, we've been able to add, at least on the GBC points race, we've been able to add Swamp Fest this year, which we're excited about. I know that Derek has been working his tail off to get that thing going. Yeah. So I know the city of Waycross is super excited about it. I've seen tons of social media posts. Whoever their social media person is, they are on point. So they're doing a fantastic job there. But I agree. I think that it is, COVID obviously hurt a lot of things, changed life for a lot.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, barbecue is no different. And I think that it you mentioned, you hit the nail on the head, sponsors and organizers, and, everybody was tightening the belt, so to speak. They didn't want to commit to any expenses they didn't have to. So, right. And that actually, Now that we're on talking about sponsors and organizers, that's a good tail into what I wanted to ask about, and that is really the future of competition barbecue. And if my listeners that listen to the show routinely know that I'm very outspoken about this, they know that, I think that we as teams, we as pitmasters need to do more. We need to bring more value to these organizers and not just sit in our RV the entire time, which I know is everybody's right to do. But I'm curious from your take, because you're obviously competing, but then you're also, in a leadership position with the GBC. But what do you feel like needs to happen? Not necessarily in Georgia, I think just as a whole, what needs to happen for competition barbecue to regain what I would consider the glory days? And what I'm talking about is, the 2012, 2013, 2014, where, Pitmasters was huge and there was just a lot of interest, basically about 10 years ago. But in your mind, what needs to happen to get us back to that point?
Well, we've got to get out there a little bit more. I was there at Sip and Swine, this couple of weeks ago, and I looked around. And if you're a new guy, you're getting into barbecue, and you walk out there, it can be extremely intimidating. When you see the rigs, you see all the people, you're thinking, my goodness, how could I even think about getting into this? I'd like to see more of the small local competitions.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I like to see some promotion, as far as the backyard, just to get people exposed to it. If you're into the backyard part of it, you don't have to have a rig. We've done it in tents and things, and I guess just really bringing more, and we need to reach out and do a better job, especially GBC. We need to do a better job reaching out to the community and maybe getting a few of those the people that are interested, having some Saturday demo days or something like that we could do. I thought about something that we could have a class for Father's Day. I'm sure the wife would like to get the dads out of the house for a Saturday, and it'd be a good gift. But get together and cook some ribs, and do that. Kurt, the contests are filling up, so
Great.
It's not a lack of people filling up the contest. That's definitely happening. But we want to see more people get involved, see newer faces there, definitely to get involved with it. Competition, I'm gonna tell you, the Georgia teams are tough. I think some of the Georgia teams here are some of the best competitors out there. You look at the people that come in that live outside of Georgia compete here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a tough field.
It is. You're exactly right. That was eye-opening at Sip and Swine a few weeks ago to see. I think there was, between the backyard and the pro, over 100 teams. I don't know the exact amount, but it was a good bit of folks. But to your point, there was a lot of teams. Midwest, Illinois, Northeast, Texas. I mean, they're coming a long way, and there's a reason for that. Obviously, the Sip and Swine is a fantastic festival, and it's supporting a great cause. But to your point, we are somewhat, I don't know if I would say blessed, but maybe blessed is the word. We're lucky that we have the caliber of teams that we do here, right here in Georgia, South Carolina, right here in the Georgia, Carolina area,
Mm-hmm.
In a really close, they're really close in proximity if you really think about it. So that I think can be intimidating. Like you talked about, you show up to if Sip and Swine is your first ever event, you're probably walking in there with eyes as wide as saucers going, what the heck did I get myself into? But I love what you said about, making it more inviting, to these newer folks and helping them understand, hey, you don't need to have, a 45-foot diesel pusher RV. I mean, sure, it's nice to have one.
Right. Oh yeah.
But you don't need to have all that to to compete. At the end of the day, the judges actually, well, most of them, I'm sure, probably don't even care what you drive.
Yeah.
So they only care about what's in that turn-in box. So I'm glad to hear that the contests are filling up, and I think it's, getting those major sponsors re-engaged. Not saying they're not engaged, but getting them more engaged, and that all trickles down. The more interest there, the more sponsors, the more money that's flowing into it, and the more contests that we have. So, I couldn't have said any better myself. I mean, I think you're right on the money there, just helping these newer teams grow into it, welcoming them. And, it's funny, before we started cooking KCBS, one of the big things I heard out there, and, you hear a lot of things out there on the barbecue circuit, but one of the things I heard was that, well, KCBS isn't the friendliest bunch, around here. And that is the furthest from the truth. I don't know where that came from. I'm sure there's, like anything else in any big organization, you probably got a few bad apples here and there, but I think that's very far from the truth. I mean, I felt, our very first cook was down in Waynesboro at the Boss Hog. Our first KCBS cook was down in Waynesboro last year in May, and we're going back again because we had a great time.
That's a great event. That is that's very cool. They got all the rigs out there. You're in a circle. The public loves it. They got a lot for them to do. It's a family event. When we got into barbecue, it was kind of intimidating in a way, and then get to know these people, get the big names. But then it actually went from more of competition to just the enjoyment of being around the friends that you've made. And I'm sure you've seen that, since you got into it. You just meet more and more and more people, and you develop relationships, and it's a friendly competition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way I look at it, I'm not out there trying to beat anyone. I'm not necessarily, yes, it's great to hear your name called, but
Sure.
if I don't hear my name called, the thing I want to see the most is what are my scores? Because here, especially at Sipping Swine, you could have some great scores and still not get a call.
That's true.
I remember up in Greenwood one time, I only got one call in brisket, but wound up finishing I think it was 7th overall.
Yeah.
The scores were there. So it's, like I said, it's fun. And I hope that's what we can do. And, any of the board members or anybody I've talked to several people that was interested in GBC and what we do in competition barbecue. We definitely, take the time. I'll talk, whatever I can do, call me, email me. I'm very quick to respond. So we'll do anything you can. The other thing too, Kurt, is there are so many different types of smokers out there. A lot of people think, well, I either got to have this, got to have that, this and that. I went through them all. I cook on a stick burner. It's a lane, and that's what I've always cooked on, and that's what I'm comfortable with. A lot of people they're comfortable with the cans or gravity feeds. It really doesn't matter what you're cooking on or how much it costs. It's just how well you can use your tools, that you got. And it's learning to use it. That's the main thing. Getting comfortable with it.
That's right. And you bring up another great point. I mean, it's very easy, especially early on, to get caught up in drums and gravity feed and stick burners and all these different types of cookers, pellet grills, you name it. And at the end of the day, I think that I understand why people get stuck on that, but I think if you get stuck on that, you're really getting stuck on the wrong thing. But what matters most is the man or woman that's behind the cooker.
Yes.
So, I've had great barbecue off of just about any cooker you can possibly imagine. So, and I think that's the beauty of barbecue as a whole, is that it is about family, but it's also, there really isn't a quote unquote, right or wrong way to cook barbecue. Now, certainly in the competition space, there are, certain, I would say, I'd call them guardrails like you see on the interstate. There's certain guardrails you should probably stay inside of, or you're sticking your neck out there and you're risking it, but bottom line is, to your point, I think if your focus is on the cooker, you're likely, focused on the wrong thing. And I can't tell you how many guests we've had on the show that have said that exact thing. They've said, look, you got to know your cooker. You got to know it inside and out. You got to know where the hot spots are. You got to know all that stuff. And that oftentimes I think gets overlooked, I love the fact that you're cooking on a stick burner. I mean, I think that the truly great, barbecue pit masters out there can cook on just about anything you put in front of them. They can, doesn't matter if it's indirect, direct, stick burner, drum, pellet grill, they can make some really good cues. So I'm curious though, have you always been a stick burner guy, or is that just something that evolved over time?
No, I've been a stick burner guy, but I've owned a gravity feed, a water smoker, drums, you name it. And I feel more comfortable with my stick burner. I had a one that I pulled with a truck, with a truck. It was on a trailer, and then I wound up buying a cart model. I guess I looked at some of these other smokers, and in your mind you think, okay, well, it might be a little easier, it might hold temp better. But I like this. I like burning wood. I use
Sure.
hickory. I use hickory and pecan and cherry. I could smell it. And wood is a seasoning. It's just like a rub or anything else. It's a seasoning. So I've learned to manage a fire. I've learned what size my sticks need to be, airflow, you name it. So I'm very, very comfortable, and I don't really have to think too much about it. I know people think, well, you're having to feed that fire every 20 minutes. Well, sure, but I don't think anything of it.
Right.
That's just part of it. It's what you get used to doing. But I do like cooking on other things.
Sure.
But as far as competition goes, I like the stick burner. I like it. And, I was talking with Alan Clem one time, Radar, and was talking to him about the outlaw he had. And, he told me, he said, Scott, he said, sometimes just what you're comfortable with. So
That's right.
It's like, yep, that, it is. That's what I'm comfortable with.
That's exactly right. I mean, I would never advocate or recommend someone purchase a smoker simply because they saw a team next to them that did really well with that smoker. I think that that's a recipe for spending a lot of money and not using it, and then figuring out, hey, this is just not something, this is not my forte. I think that when you look at the smokers though, and this is actually something we haven't really touched on much in the show, but when you look at the different styles of smokers, they're like anything else, right? They have advantages and disadvantages.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to camp out on that for a second. I think, with the stick burner, obviously, the biggest advantage in my mind is you get that, as you said, the wood acts as another layer of seasoning that is very difficult, not saying impossible, but very difficult to get that same type of seasoning from any other cooker.
Yeah. And that goes down to some personally what you like also.
That's right.
And learning what the judges want. The barbecue I eat here at the house, the barbecue I cook for others, is nothing like the barbecue I'm turning in. And right. I think a lot of people don't understand it, especially when they get into it. It's like, man, don't worry about getting your feelings hurt. You can cook good barbecue, but what they're looking for, you have to figure out what those judges want. And I'd say the biggest thing to nail is going to be the tenderness, hitting it right on. You can, as far as the flavor profile, you can get close in that, as long as you're not too hot, too sweet, too spicy, you know. But tenderness, that's the one that'll get you, buddy. You gotta nail that, or the judges will get you on that one.
Oh yeah. And if I remember correctly, I believe that's 60% of your score.
Yeah.
Tenderness.
Yep.
So that's a big one. And it makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, if you go out and have a really tender, juicy piece of meat, but the flavor is maybe just a little off, or the taste is just a little off, you're still probably going to remember that as being a very tender, juicy piece of meat.
Oh yeah.
On the other hand, if you if you have a piece of meat that's not as tender, but the taste is great, you're probably going to remember it because it was chewy and tough.
Yeah.
So, but I love what you said about, how the barbecue we make in the competition world and the barbecue that we make at home are two different things. And you're right. A lot of folks, they don't understand that. They don't get it. And the way I explain it, and maybe you explain it differently, the way I explain it to them is, well, look, the judge is taking one bite. So you have to put as much flavor, as much tenderness and everything in one single bite. That's all you got. And once I explain it, they begin to, to understand, what we're talking about there. So speaking of cooking barbecue at the house, what is your favorite thing to cook at the house?
Oh God, wings.
Wings.
No, wings. Yeah, that seems to be something we eat at least once a week, a couple times a week. But no, yeah, I like. I'm gonna tell you, during barbecue season, I can't stand barbecue. I get so much of it, I don't want it. No, but fried catfish, wings, something like that, and I can cook some good pork rinds too. So, but now, I like just good old pulled pork. I mean, but I like my pulled pork with vinegar,
Yep.
spicy, a lot of bark on it, almost burnt, but that's what I like here at the house.
Now, are you cooking those wings on the lang, or are you cooking them over some direct heat?
I've done them both. I've cooked them on the lang before. That's one thing we do for Live Safe Resources is we'll wind up cooking about 500 wings there, and when they have their fundraising. And that when I say we, I'm talking about like 6 to 8 other teams. And so I'll smoke them on that lang and then flash fry them.
Yep.
I've got a little fryer there that I'll throw them in and just crisp them up a little bit. But yes, wings. Yeah, I love that. So,
what's your go-to for your rub and your sauce for the wings at the house? What's your, I'm sure you're like me. You probably got a whole shelf of rubs.
Yeah. Killer Hogs.
What's your go-to?
Yeah, Killer Hogs Hot is a good one. And then I got your Slap Your Mama Cajun seasoning, the extra hot, not just the normal, the extra hot. And that really adds a kick to it. But then I'll go to is the Frank's honey garlic, I believe is what they got, a little honey garlic. And a little bit of that on there. That goes very well together. But then outside of that, just some good old buffalo, sauce is good. But yeah, it's the kids, they don't even want to go eat wings anywhere else as long as Dad can fry them here. So
it sounds like you become or you're close to becoming a wing master then.
Oh, no. I cooked wings last year. We went and cooked in helped Willingham's World Championship barbecue. We helped them up at Memphis in May, and that was my ancillary was the wings. And they didn't like my wings as much as the kids do. So, hey,
well,
we're gonna give it another shot. So we'll see what we can come up with.
There you go. I love that. And for our listeners, again, that's Killer Hogs Hot is the go-to.
Killer Hogs Hot. Yeah. And Slap Your Mama. That's not Slap Your Daddy. The Harry Sue is slap your mama. So that's a good seasoning. That's a good seasoning on pork rinds. If anybody's cooking pork rinds at the house, which I don't know many that does, but yeah, that's pretty good.
I love that. That's awesome. And so now that I hear you correctly, you're going to be going to Memphis in May again this year?
Yep, we're going to Memphis May again. So
very cool. So for our listeners that don't know, that is considered by many to be the World Championship barbecue competition held every May in Memphis. I think there's less teams this year. I believe they had a change of venue, but there's about 100 teams if I remember correctly on some of the posts that I saw. So that's
180, I believe. I don't know how many is in the shoulder division. Paul Holder with Willinghams, though, he invited us back along with the rest of the crew that was there last year. So yeah, I mean, we feel pretty good about it. We're gonna change things up a little bit. We're gonna carry that stick burner up there with us, and
there you go.
See what we can come up with.
You know, one thing you talked about wings and made me think. I've seen recently that there's some teams actually turning in wings.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Have you ever thought about that?
I've thought about it. I'm a thigh guy, and it's hard for me too. Sometimes I do good and with my chicken, and sometimes I don't. I'll tell you, there's something about. Now, I will say, when we talk about cookers, I've taken some classes. I've been with you in a few classes. I think you were at Brian Jarvis's. I think it was the first
year. Last year.
Yep. And but I listened to others and how they cook their wing. I mean, not their wing, excuse me, their thighs or their chicken. And you know what? I found out that a lot of different techniques, a lot of different recipes, it just does not work on a stick burner. It doesn't. So I have to stick with what I'm used to and kind of tweak where I'm at. There's a lot of good cooks out there, and they do a great job, and what they teach in these classes are great. And there's a vast amount of knowledge you can get from those classes. But if you think you're going to walk away from a class and just rock it because you're cooking their recipe, you're kidding yourself, because it's not that easy. Like I said, you have to learn your equipment, and you got to know what you can do, what you can't do. So as far as my thighs, I'm sticking with the same recipe I did when I was in backyard and at Sipping Swine. So haven't changed much from that.
Well, it seems like it's working. I could probably take a few pages out of your book. I am guilty as charged when it comes to changing up things that we do. Sometimes on a whim, which I know is like the number one cardinal sin in competition barbecue. So I'm working on that. I'm working on that aspect of it. But again, for our listeners, we're chatting with Scott Parr. He's the president of the Georgia BBQ Championship. He's also the pitmaster of Cool Hand Q. You can find both the GBC and Cool Hand Q on Facebook and Instagram. Also, if you're a team out there or you're looking to get into this, reach out to Scott. He's very approachable, very knowledgeable about this, always willing to help. Georgia BBQ Championship.org is how you can connect there. And again, membership is very, very reasonable. $50 a year for pro, $35 a year for backyard. And again, if you've got an LLC, that is tax deductible. So just throwing that out there. But Scott, very last question as we wind down, and really has to do with, the newbies, right? The folks that are on the kind of the sidelines that are looking at this and going, okay, do I jump? Do I not jump? What words of wisdom, what advice do you have for those people that are contemplating getting into competition barbecue, or maybe just took that first step? What would you say to those folks, knowing what you know now?
Do it. And I would, go to a contest, talk to people, go there on Friday afternoons, don't talk to anybody until after 2:00 Saturday, because they're not approachable then. And but no, go on Fridays, talk to the people. I mean, there's so many people there. If you're looking at getting into it, definitely look at what you can do as far as the backyard end of it. Now, I will say this, Kurt, this is the big step from people going from backyard. The biggest thing I hear from backyard to pro is the cost of a brisket. I will tell you this: I cooked prime for many years. And I said, I'm not going to cook a Wagyu until I nail a prime. And buddy, you can get good scores and you can get calls using a prime. As long as you learn how to cook it. And that's what I did, man. I mean, learn to get all you can out of it. And then, yeah, you might move up a point or two, but if you're not hitting in the 172, 173 with a prime, you need to keep working on it. And then, if you cook a Wagyu, it can bump you up a few more points. And a prime, you can get a prime. They're not expensive. I was paying $65, $75. So,
right.
That's people shouldn't get intimidated on that or the cost of the, I would say, the competition meat. Look, I've known guys that's got 180s with a 99 cent per pound Kroger pork butts, and I'm not that for a fact, and ribs from Costco. So, once you, I think, nail it and you learn what you need to do, talk to others. Don't necessarily ask other people what to do. Tell them what you're doing. Tell them this is what I'm doing. And, I tell you, well, maybe you ought to try this or try that. This is what I did when I was doing things that way but ask for advice. And, like I said, I think everybody is pretty well approachable. But it's a hobby. You can make it a very expensive hobby, or you can get out there and have fun and have some good friendly competition. And that's really where you need to be at. I don't know, Kurt, when you decided to jump into this, I'm turning it around. I'm asking you.
There you go. I like it.
What caused you to get into it? What attracted you to it?
The realization that my creative outlet is barbecue. The long story short, had some friends over August of 2021. We were cooking out. One of them said to me, "Hey, I think your creative outlet is barbecue."
Yeah.
And for my entire life, I'd always told myself, I'm not creative. But I viewed creativity as the more traditional, art, sculpture, painting, etc. And that comment right there, I reflected on that comment for about 3 weeks, and it just really hit me. And I finally said, I called up a good friend of mine, and I said, and he's a big barbecue guy, and I said, "Hey, I think we can compete. Let's just do it." So, but the short answer is just the realization that this was my, creative outlet, and it also filled that competitive spirit that I have. I still have that.
Right.
And I still like to compete and, like you said, hear your name called. So I think those are the two things: realizing I was creative with it, and then also it was kind of fulfilling that competitive side that I've always had too. That all came together, and yeah, here we are. So,
so what, when you started going into it, I'm sure you thought of it as one way. Now that you've been doing it for a couple of years now, what's your view on it? How's it changed?
I would say, well, first and foremost, it's what we already talked about, and that is the competition barbecue and regular barbecue are two totally different things. I had no idea about that. Heck, if I wouldn't, and I'm glad I took that class back in January, the Atlanta Barbecue Store Classic, because I literally, no lie, would have probably just thrown in some pulled pork in the pork box, So that's number one for sure. Secondly, I would say the just the family, the barbecue family, right? It's, it was very obvious to me early on that it's a very tight-knit community. It's a very welcoming community. And I think those that have this notion that this sanctioning body or that sanctioning body is not welcoming, I really think that's all in their head. I think that maybe they need to take a look in the mirror, because regardless of where I've cooked, whether it's been, we've done an MBN. In fact, we got fifth down in Pig Jig, and mainly because Marcio with Hog Addiction gave us some great pointers right there on the spot. So anyway, so to answer your question, I think for me, it was just the realization that regular barbecue and competition barbecue are different. And then secondly, that family and just how tight knit and how supportive the family can be. So I think those two things are what I really, have a much better understanding of now.
Right.
As opposed to when I first got into it, because we just, you don't know what you don't know. But I always said from day one, I said, look, if we're going to compete, I want to compete with the very best there is. I don't, what's the word? I don't find any sort of comfort in, beating the weekend warriors. I want to go up against the folks that are top 5, top 10 in the country.
Oh yeah.
And as you said earlier in our discussion, the great thing is that those folks, top 5, top 10 teams are coming to Georgia, are coming to, Festival Discovery in Greenwood.
Oh yeah.
We had some monster teams there last year. I'm sure we'll have, same caliber of teams there this year too. So I think that's really cool. But yeah, I could go on and on and on. I love this stuff. I know you do too. And I think, the words of wisdom that you've had today are eye-opening. I know I've been, taking some notes myself. And again, for our listeners, we're talking to Scott Parr. He's the pitmaster of Cool Hand Q. He's also the president of the Georgia Barbecue Championship, Georgia BBQ Championship.com. You can find him on Facebook too, Georgia BBQ Championship. Check out all the cool things they are doing. Get involved. Very reasonable annual fee to be involved there. And Scott, we appreciate you coming on the show. Enjoy the discussion, sir.
Appreciate you having me.